All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Information Technology Board meeting. My name is Joseph O'Connor. I am the chairman of the board. It is July 26, 2022, and approximately 9:35 a.m., and we are live and in person in the City County Building in room 260. We'll go ahead and start with introductions. On my right,
Judge Mark Rothberg, Marion Superior Court.
Angela Grider, Marion County Sheriff's Office.
Val Cunningham, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department.
Julie Voorhees, Marion County Auditor, appointed by the City Council, Bob Bosley.
Jane Richardson, mayoral appointee from the community.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and the first item on the agenda will be to approve the June 28th, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or addition to those minutes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Next on the agenda, we're moving to the ISA report from Mr. Patrick. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm Elliot Patrick, the Chief Information Officer here at ISA. Starting with our IT board report for looking back at the month of June. As always, we start with our enterprise projects. We've got a couple new ones on here, or at least one new one here, the enterprise security training, part of the security program. This is something that we just rolled out to the enterprise, and we've actually seen some good traction so far. So when we purchased one of our security apparatus last year, it came with some training and some that we're also applying into our enterprise learning tool, Lessonly, that we bought in 2020. So we've been able to push that out to the entire enterprise for people to take training, learn about various types of phishing and malware and things that are going on in the enterprise and in the world, so we can get more familiar with those items. It is something that's voluntary, but we can highly encourage all of our staff to take this. As we learn more about this, we're going to work more with HR to get this put into the onboarding process as well too, but we're very happy with this thus far. Next is the application managed service RFP. You're going to hear more about that today, but we're happy to bring that to the board for resolution 22-22 today for the award. After that, our two CARES projects. These are related to Request Indy. This is the Salesforce case management system for the Mayor's Action Center, as well as then the Unified Communications call center phone system that goes behind that. Those two are a linked project because the phone system cannot go until the software is ready. We've run into a little bit more issue when it comes to the data migration. We've lost people on our team, but also the process has taken a little bit longer. We pushed out to a mid-August go live in coordination with the Mayor's Office and the Mayor's Action Center. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a great change to that process, both on the front end and the back end with the new Salesforce capsule, and that should be a good hub that the rest of the other constituent services tools will be able to tie into in the future. Next is security program privilege and remote access management. This is one that we're continuing to work on. This was the purchase of a tool that we acquired late last year, working through implementing this so we can help to better manage third-party vendors when they're coming into the environment, utilizing our environment so we can lock down the tool sets, lock down the time they have, kind of like library card access to our most critical accounts, but also for our own internal team, but also for those in the third party, locking down the access they have and then being able to say then we have for 1 or 2 hours and then pulling it back after that point in time. So that'll give us a little bit more auditing clarity as well there. Hopefully getting that rolled out by the end of August. Next is the Unified Communications implementation. This is the phone system. We're continuing to work through that. Our team's been working diligently on this. We are working on city county building rollouts. We are targeting some smaller, we've made a pivot. Previously we were looking at the public defender and the prosecutor's office first because of the work they're doing at the Community Justice Campus. We've run into a little bit of an issue with the software-based phone pieces that we know will be helpful for them. So we're going to pivot to making progress in the city county building. Looking at TVSA, Building Authority, Controller's Office, and some other pieces of OFM to get their phone systems cut over. Working through that process should have those folks done soon, and hope to get the rest of the city county building and the prosecutor and public defender done by the end of the year, and we'll continue to look forward at the rest of the outlying agencies as well too. Next is the Indy 3.0 automation project. This continues to be on pause. We did have a meeting with the auditor and the Office of Finance and Management and Purchasing Division and the Controller's Office. I believe that was about 2 weeks ago, Madam Auditor, talking through a larger idea around a vendor interaction and vendor management portal, both for vendor registration, XBE registration, and then also the tie-in of invoicing through accounts payable automation, which this project will help to enable. As that moves forward, we're also we hope in the future to be able to have a portal both for the city county to be able to better report on XBE at a sub-level based on the invoicing, but also to automate the process for ingestion of those invoices, and also as a prospective supplier to us, those businesses will be able to have better access and understanding about when they submitted invoices, what the status is of those things, and especially for those subcontractors, those smaller organizations, know a little bit more about when they've been paid, or at least their prime's been paid, so they as a subcontractor can understand that more, because it's a big issue that subcontractors can't wait net 60, net 90, net 120 days. If we take 30 days to pay the primes, we don't have control, and we want to make sure that we can now help to audit that and work with purchasing to work with those some of those primes that may not be paying their subcontractors as well as we'd like them to. The new one here on the list is the storage modernization. Thank you to the board for the approval last month with Dell for that one. That, as a reminder, is the procurement of new storage and backup for the enterprise, replacing what we have at IoT. Actually, my mic's not on. And then from there, we are working through the procurement of this. So we have your approval, but we're working through the contracts and the procurement and the finance for this one, but that one will be getting kicked off here in the next, I'd say, 60 days or so. And then lastly are the two Kronos projects. We're working on internal project managers, as well as continue to line up the timing for schedule with Kronos and then IMPD and Sheriff's Office on that one. Kronos is working on getting us updated schedules, so that way those agencies can align and make sure those schedules work out. Reminder, we put those on hold both because of COVID, but then also opening the adult detention center, then into the Kronos issue they had globally with their data center, but we're now trying to get that thing back ongoing and moving forward. But those two will get a date hopefully at the next meeting in September. Looking forward, service level agreements for our vendors. DI hit all their SLAs. Bell missed just one, actually for the average speed to answer. So they are required to answer all phone calls to the service desk within 60 seconds. That SLA, I believe, is 94%. They were just at like 93%, so just barely missed. There's been some uptick in the amount of calls and the volume and some of the complexity of the volume with the new community justice campus. So as that new site came on, there was a tremendous amount of technology that came on with that as well too, and new logistical sites and some other nuanced items that we've been working through. So in order to combat that, both we're looking at the staffing and scheduling and what times are we having high call volumes, making sure the desk has enough resources at those times, but also looking at the knowledge side of this as well too. When calls go longer, that means there's less opportunity for people to pick up the next call if they start stacking up. So the more knowledge we put in for the service desk, the better they'll be able to respond and move that up. But at 93% compared to 94%, we're still pretty happy, and Bell, again, continues to be a great partner for us. As evidenced in our customer satisfaction, and customer satisfaction continues to be very strong, sitting at 97% here for June. Compared to the 97 in May as well. We continue to see strong CSAT scoring. I think the lowest we've had since Bell's come on is 94%, so that continues to go very, very well. As discussed in the last meeting, from a financial management perspective, ISA continues to work through its budget as we do each year. We typically will encumber most of our budget at the beginning of the year, so we start out pretty high and then continue to spend down as the projects happen throughout the rest of the year, and we've got some other scheduled contracts coming. But right now we're at 69% of our budget has been encumbered or spent. 10 million left. We're working with OFM on our second half spend plan that we submitted through the budget process, but also continuing to work with our managers on the products they have upcoming, and with our business services teams on the things that our agencies and departments have need for. We will have some Character 1 money that we're looking to move to Character 3 later in the year to help us to accomplish some projects and to move some things out at 2023, hopefully, if we can get those things done early. But we will continue to monitor our budget, but we feel good that we're in a strong position going into the second half of the year. Next, from a revenue perspective, ISA, as I mentioned in the last meeting, we lost our CFO back in April. We got chargeback invoices out in early June, and were able to get those bills out. We were then able to receive the revenue on those, so both of those have gone out. So we are sitting right now around 51% billed compared to what we had budgeted, and we've collected 100% on the internal side. We continue to struggle with external billing. This is something that we need to work on with our our business services team to reach out to some of those externals and really, either get memorandums of understanding between those units and city, county, and ISA, or find ways to remove the access and then no longer bill them for services they're not going to pay for. So we do have some other more commercial providers that do take a little bit longer to pay us, which is we're used to, but we'll continue to monitor that situation. We also continue to work with OFM on our budgeting purposes for revenue. When we look at what we budget for revenue for 2022 and for 2023, we expect that we're going to get I'd say the large majority of our internal chargeback paid. On the external side, not so much, so we're budgeting around that. We'd like to get to a place that we can get more certainty on the external side, and as we do, we'd reduce the fees that we're looking at charging to the rest of the city, county agency to have that offset so we can reduce our budget burden as well too. But we'll continue to coordinate that with OFM. And with that, any questions?
Any questions from the board on the ISA report? Thanks. Moving on to the Minority, Women's, Disabled, and Veterans XBE report for quarter 2. Mr. Patrick again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, here to present the second quarter Minority, Women, Veteran, and Disabled-Owned Business Enterprise report. As always, we want to thank our partners from DI and Bell for helping us to achieve these goals, and also call out that only the minority, women-owned, veteran-owned, and disabled-owned business enterprises that are certified with the city Office of Minority and Women's Business Development are counted towards this report. If there's any vendors that are watching today, if would have any questions about registering to do business with the city, you can reach out to myself or reach out to the Office of Finance Management Purchasing or the Office of Minority and Women's Business Development. Taking a look at our statistics for quarter 2, we continue to perform strong overall. Did not skip forward. Okay. Continue to perform strong overall at 51% of our eligible spending in the second quarter. As you look at the $8.5 million in spending, and 2.7 of it was eligible, with 1.4% of it actually being XBE spending. I'm going to pause just for a second, step back. When we talk about eligible spending, we work with the Office of Minority and Women's Business Development on the expenses that we have, and they review those expenses, OMWBD, with us and those vendors to see what is eligible. Things that are not eligible, for example, are things like utilities or some of the pre-competed agreements that are tied to so utilities, and then there's other large organizations like Microsoft where there is not an XBE provider that could be seen as an alternative. So in those cases, those are not counted. So when you see that total versus the eligible, that's what the difference is a number when looking at our budget and reviewing those vendors in discussion with OMWBD that help us to get there. But again, at 51%, we still continue to perform strong overall. However, we continue to lag when it comes to disabled-owned business enterprise, but we have done well in getting over the 15% hump in the second quarter for minority business enterprise, and women business enterprise continues to be strong, as well as veteran-owned. Looking at the year-to-date, though, we do see, again, overall, our spending is right there around 55% at 54.9%. However, we continue to lag a little bit in minority business enterprise. We've seen some strong move there in the second quarter, getting closer to that goal. Overall, women business enterprise continues to be strong due to the partnership with Danielson Associates, Inc. Veteran-owned is slightly above as well, too, but still have that lag when it comes to disabled-owned business enterprises. That continues to be a soft spot for the entire city-county enterprise, as that's been some struggle to find and cultivate that vendor population. But we continue to work with OMWBD. And as you may recall, with the hiring of Julie Beatty Jarwood from OMWBD at the beginning of the year, she's helping us to really think differently about how we're targeting our competitions and procurements to those XBE vendors to make sure that we're continuing to have strong performance towards our goals. So we hope to see this continue to close the gap on MBE and continue to try to work out in the community to find disabled business enterprises that we could partner with as well, too. Questions?
Any questions from the board? Thanks, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you.
Moving on to our action items for today, we have Resolution 22-19. Looks like Network Solutions. Nicole Haley Holmes will be presenting. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Nicole Heatley Holmes, and I'm the end user computing manager for ISA. Resolution 2219 is to authorize expenditure for Cisco for additional networking products and services. As you know, NSI was our partner at CJC and helped to create the network at this facility and partnered with us during our opening. With several new buildings that we have in our forecast, we will require additional services and equipment. The Information Services Agency recommends contracting with authorized Cisco reseller network resolution for additional networking products and services in an amount not to exceed $3 million. Any questions?
Any questions from the board on Resolution 22-19? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution is approved. Next, we have Resolution 2220, Unified Communications.
This is a resolution to authorize expenditure to Cisco for unified communication products and services. As we continue the unified communications rollout, this resolution will help to cover additional expenses throughout this project. The Information Services Agency recommends contracting with an authorized Cisco reseller for telephony, hardware, software, networking products, and services in an amount not to exceed $250,000 to cover unified communication products and services.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution is approved. Next, we have Resolution 22-21, Kronos. Mr. Hill will be presenting. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Colin Hill. I am the Chief Technology Officer for ISA. This resolution is for Kronos, for telestaff and workforce dimensions, software support licenses, and for the ongoing projects to complete those for the Sheriff's Office specifically and for IMPD. We're looking for an additional $200,000 not to exceed of $3,576,365.80 to finish those projects and provide the licensing and support through next year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board on Resolution 22-21? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Resolution is approved. Next, we have the Resolution 22-22, which is the RFP. Looks like Mr. Hill and a few others will be presenting.
That's correct. I'll be joined by Siobhan Patarla from Daniels Associates and Mark Caswell, CEO of Consultants. Give me just a second to get this going here. So, to start this off, this is for our application services RFP that we issued in July of last year out to the street. To provide a little context for the board, I wanted to go back and talk about the outsourcing and how we've done that at ISA since 1995. So back then, ISA outsourced most of their smart hand staff, those people who work on all the servers, systems, databases, and whatnot, leaving just 11 folks on the ISA staff to administer those contracts and to make sure that they were following the strategic goals of the city-county with those outsourced partners. Back in 2004, application services was called a service area. It was identified as a separate thing and was outsourced itself And then that started in 2005 with the first outsourced contract. And then moving forward, we again put that out to bid in 2013. That was won by Daniels and Associates. And since then, we did the initial 5-year term for that, and then an additional 3 years after that. And then we extended again back in 2021 for 9 months to get clear of the CJC move-ins, and then also for the pandemic, and to give us time to negotiate the contract and make it all work as far as the dates were concerned. As far as our objectives for this, we're really pleased with the Daniels and Associates staff that we had through our partnership. But there were growing challenges through the city county with new applications, new softwares as a service that departments and agencies were bringing to us that we had to support. There was the impending move and push by those agency partners to move towards cloud adoption, whether it's through Azure or it's some other mission critical application that a department wanted to move to. It's really challenging, and we had been kind of had our own 5 towers that we worked in and had worked in since essentially since 2005, and it hadn't really grown, and we hadn't really added the right pieces to make that work. So in this RFP, we were really looking to sort of bridge the gap with what we have now and having those people that we know and trust, but also making it available so that we could grow as the city county needed to grow with their technology demands. We focused on wanting to bring in partners who knew those areas that we didn't know yet, and who could advise us and suggest how we should act and what kind of technology purchases we may need to make, and really provide strategic direction that we could make a decision on as a city county to move forward. I know that Mr. Patrick just reported on the XBE participation, but throughout this process, having those bidders to have a strong XBE participation within their bid, as well as being local to the city county, was important to our decision-making process. I know I mentioned those towers previously, so just a little speaking to that a little bit, so you understand what we've asked for here and then what we've received. So for our infrastructure provider bid back in 2019, we created a new tower for the infrastructure side called cross-functional, and that is essentially how the work gets done between the different towers within that service provider. So it's making sure that the service desk works with field services, works with your server team, so that all works as cohesively as possible. The same applies to application services. There's different, as you can see here on this slide, there's different towers that all have to work together to complete and deliver services for the city county. Platform service is that growing emerging technologies that I talked about earlier. So that's essentially a bucket that we've had for the cloud adoption, whether it's Azure, AWS, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's ServiceNow is our tool, but Microsoft 365 collaboration suite. We all use Teams here, and it's not exactly. We're still building it out and making it work. SharePoint is another tool that we use that we desperately need talent for, so that's included in this as well. Integration services is a tower that is essentially combining. It's pushing data from one application to another and making sure that it delivers properly with the right types of data. This has been something that we have done previously, but the demand for integrations for our different applications for the different departments and agencies is growing all the time. I can't stress that enough, how much we use integrations throughout the city county, so much so that the IT board back in 2019 approved that we purchase a separate platform called Boomi to help us with our integrations in the city county and to manage those. Data management is a tower that you're all probably familiar with. It's sort of rebranded in this bid. Essentially, it was our database systems, and I think most of you are familiar with databases, but there's been an increasing demand for business intelligence, data delivery, so that folks in your positions can make decisions based on data and how that works within the city county. So the renaming of this tower is essentially because of that demand and making sure that we have the right folks to provide those services. Third-party applications is a tower that we use for vendor management and vendor services management and their applications. So essentially, this is the team that manages a third-party application if a department or agency doesn't have the people to manage it appropriately. It usually comes to ISA to manage. GIS is the backbone of what we do here as far as our data. It's the addressing system. It's geospatial maps, apps, and data. Finally, application development was essentially a catch-all originally. Salesforce was in this tower, integration services was in this tower, but those demands were so much that we've had to break them out to meet the needs of the city county. Finally, this is a custom application, so if it's a separate application that you can't find on the streets or from a different vendor, it usually comes to this team to develop something custom for those departments and agencies. And then the last tower listed here is our ERP team. That is essentially your PeopleSoft team. For finance and HCM also includes Oracle EPM, which was Hyperion, and then also scheduling and timekeeping applications. So there's a lot here. Finally, going back through the timeline, I know that this sheet says that we began this process, or we released it out to the vendor community in September of 21. But in fact, I think we made a decision as an ISA team to start this process in January of 21. And it was not without some serious consideration, considering we were looking at doing the CJC and in the middle of a pandemic, right? It was a lot to do in that time, but we decided it was worth it for the city county as a whole to go through this process. It took us longer than we thought it would, but here we are. Eventually we had a lot of help from the internal ISA team. Call it a quick couple names: Jim Jarvis, Jordan McCarroll, and Kate Coton were essential in writing that bid, along with Steve and Elliot. As we finally got it out, we went through the normal ceremonies for this process. We selected a selection committee trying to make up a good selection of city county folks to help us, guide us in this decision. And as you can see, we ended up doing presentations through December of 21. And I'll get more to the steering committee in a second, but they were essential for us and very helpful. Here's our scoring criteria. I want to call out that primarily the most weight was on the scopes of works that I mentioned. Those scopes were those towers that I went through and explained. Price was also high on that list, but then the supplier diversity and proposer experience were also very high. Just so you have an understanding of how that was broken out. Finally, our selection committee members, I don't know if you're watching or if you're here, but thank you very much. I do appreciate it. It was myself, Elliot, Patrick, Steve Kramer from the city. We had Commander Thomas from IMPD, Janae Roten from OFM, from City County Council. We had Brandon Herget, and then from the county we had Rodney Shine from the Treasurer's Office and Geneva Remke for the Sheriff's Office. She was asked to serve on the committee by the Sheriff's Office. And finally, we had Amitav Tamba from Marion Superior Court. I will say, briefly pause here, I mentioned that we were meeting in December of 21 and going through all these bids from the different vendors. And I don't know if you can remember, but back in December 21, things were getting busy. Sorry, it's terrible. Things were very busy with the CJC, and Amitav and Geneva made themselves really available to us to make these decisions, and it was greatly appreciated. I mean, we were meeting the last 2 weeks of December as well, and then into January just a little bit as we were making our decision. So thank you again, selection committee members. Our proposed contract award is essentially for services is $40,255,000, $255,275. ISA would like to add in $2,500,000 in potential project spend over those 5 years for a grand total of $42,755,275. I will stress that the teams represented here, both with Daniels and Associates and Resultant, are Indianapolis-based teams. DAI has a 38-year relationship with the city-county. There's great stories we can tell about 1984 when they came in the door, but we can avoid that for right now. And that Daniels and Associates is a woman-owned business entity. Siobhan.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Chairman O'Connor. My name is Siobhan Patarla. I will be the program manager for this engagement moving forward. Like Colin said, 38 years, right? More than 3 decades of services to city and county that DA has brought to the table. Ultimately, there's one attitude that really helps us sustain this. That is customer-first attitude, right? We always wanted to do what is best for the customer. Put the customer in front of us. In the course of doing that, we've built top-of-the-line resources here at the city of Indianapolis and Marion County. And Colin talked about all the towers we have. Obviously, we're building and expanding the scope of that, but we have the traditional towers for the last 30 years supporting city and county, and we have intimate knowledge of the city and county enterprises, specifically application portfolio. Not only that, many of the systems were built from ground up by the resources that support, as we speak, on the 19th floor, supporting city and county enterprises. So it really gives us a great opportunity not only to sustain what we have done over the last some decades, but built on it, right? When we bring Resultant into the mix. What I would like to call attention to is. Ultimately where we want to go, right? For example, myself, I've been in this building supporting city and county for 20 years, working at different towers primarily, and just established so many relationships across the board, not only within ISA, but within the partners too, that really gives me a unique perspective of what works in the building and where the opportunities lie, ultimately, right? So because, Colin talked about all of the areas that we want to bring to the table to be able to enhance the service delivery across all the agencies, and having the partnerships, right? I will bring a Mark here, but ultimately bringing Resultant into the mix will not only help us sustain and grow where we are, but also help ISA get where they want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And the partnership with Resultant is not a coincidence, because ultimately when we go back to how Resultant and DI came together, City of Fort Wayne and Allen County is another engagement for us. And going back to last 3 years, we have come together there, ultimately delivering the best-in-class technology and resources at City of Fort Wayne and Allen County. So it becomes a seamless transition for us as partners to bring the right governance into the mix, to bring that resources and talent base to City of Indianapolis, and kind of bring us to where we want to go eventually in the next 3 to 5 years. So I know Mark is here. I would like for him to talk a little bit about Resultant and what the partnership brings to the table.
Thank you. We like these guys. We've had a really good relationship with DAI. Resultant, we have been in business since 2008 here in central Indiana. We moved our headquarters into the city about 3 years ago. So I literally walked just down from the circle this morning here. And right in the center of our mission is to help our clients, coworkers, and communities thrive. And you can kind of see how this is dead center in the middle of all 3 of those things, right? I also appreciate how the city has kind of crafted this proposal with some of the new towers that you see. What we're seeing across the nation, we have 450 people in total. What we're seeing across the nation is there are a few governments that are leaning forward into what it means to use technology at the next level to deliver services to the citizens, to help the city thrive. It is not easier to run a city than it was last week or last year or a decade ago. It seems like it's getting harder, and technology is one of those things that can help. And I was really pleased to see the city kind of in a really innovative way lean forward on some of those towers and what we think technology can do. So happy to be here, happy to answer any questions, of course, about our organization. Very happy to partner once again with DAI, and I thank you.
Well, so this slide really speaks to the differentiator, right? What really helps us stand out when it comes to what we can do for the city and county. Ultimately, the first one, if you look at successful incumbent provider, right? we've talked through that. We've been here for some decades. But that continuity that we can bring to the table, right? Ultimately build on what we are able to do with the new service towers, but just build on what we have started and sustain that helps us, better prepared to be successful, and by extension, help ISA be successful. And partnership, Mark talked about that. Again, partnership bringing from what we've started 3 years ago to continue that here with City of Indianapolis and Marion County. And I'm truly excited for that, because especially the strength that resultant brings to the partnership is what we want to count on to take us to the next level, especially when you talk about cloud adoption or digital transformation that Colin talked about. Those are the areas we can definitely benefit from bringing resultant to the table. Application Competency Center, I want to briefly touch on that. As I mentioned, the partnership we have at City of Fort Wayne in Allen County, the technology we've established there, the resources we have there, that really gives us the opportunity to combine the synergy between these two counties, not only at the technology level, but also when you look at the governance from a city and county, Elliott, at the ISA level, or even the IT board. So there are great opportunities that we can bring these two local governments together. And that's something I want to pursue with Elliott and Colin as we set and move forward with this, where we can kind of get the teams together and see where we can collaborate at the technology level, but also at the governance level, and where we can benefit from each other's collaboration. So that's something I'm really counting on where we can benefit from as we move forward. I want to quickly jump to the MBE commitment that Elliott talked about, and DAI definitely has been a great partner with city and county to further that to help Indianapolis and city and county to be able to get special diversity into the mix, and we have continued that with the current partnership also. We have several vendors that are bringing special expertise to the table that will help us ultimately deliver the services to city and county. So what happens though is, as you may ask, when you have multiple vendors come together, right? We want to be able to seamlessly deliver the services to. So that's when we can bring the multi-source services integration model. So the way it works is, when you have multiple vendors, you want a single-threaded service delivery framework. So this framework really drives home that, because when Colin and Elliott starts looking at the governance aspect of it, we want to have a single-threaded approach. And I'm really counting on that, because it's a proven tool that we've used at Fort Wayne and Allen County, and we're going to bring that to city and county to help us drive home our service delivery framework. And a couple of other that I want to touch, Mark mentioned about leaders in cloud. Again, we're looking at where we are and where we want to go. Continue sustaining what we currently do, especially when it comes to cloud adoption. Colin and I have been working on this engagement for about 3 years. When we started out, what is the next step for us when we begin our cloud adoption and eventually mature and bringing the data from on-premise to the cloud. And that knowledge that we bring will be super helpful for us to get where we want to go eventually. And last but not least, headquartered. Colin mentioned both resultant and DAI are headquartered in Indianapolis, and even the XBE partners who are coming together, they're all based out of Indianapolis. So it really puts it back into the economy when it comes to that. So in the end, I would say very excited for the opportunity. Thank you everyone here for giving us the opportunity to sustain and continue building on where we are. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thanks, Mark. I wanted to break out the pricing overview of what these towers look like over the 5 years. I will say, as we negotiated the contract, it came to our attention that platform, the tower that I spoke about earlier, that was primarily like cloud adoption, and then also the collaboration tools, those items that are sort of emerging technologies. It made sense to move some of those services up into the cross-functional tower, because they service the other towers. So that's why you see that tower as significantly more expensive than necessarily the platform tower. What remains currently in the platform tower as it's bid is Salesforce as a whole, and there's a growing number of Salesforce developers to meet the needs of current and future plans for Salesforce. So that's what you're looking at there. Also in the cross-functional, there is what is called a flex bucket. And this is essentially an ability to do a callback to DAI and resultant to get whatever technology person that we need, whether it's I'm trying to think of a random example, and it's escaping me, but we need a cloud architect for some emerging thing. Thanks, that was right there. And yeah, but we'll be able to reach back, and we have a certain set of hours in this bucket that we can use for that cloud architect. If it's another technology, we have that as well. And that flex bucket actually grows across the 5 years. It's not something that we're going to make extreme use of as we stand up these services during the first year of the contract, but as we go, it'll be something that's built up. Again, the projects at the bottom is an ask from ISA so that we can do something where we perhaps have a project that comes to us and we need to resource crash that. We have both DAI and Resultant as partners to meet those project needs. That's not something that we're looking to spend, but we want to have the ability from the board to be able to do that if necessary, and that's what that ask is there. As a quick breakdown from looking at year to year, as you look at the individual towers, the towers have these ISA's color schemes. So I apologize for the interesting colors there as you go, but it should give you a breakdown of what that looks like across the years. Finally, that is actually the last slide, and we're open to answer any questions that you all may have. No, please do. Yeah, one more thing, sir.
If I may, please. We talked about building the trust and sustaining it over the last 3 decades. And there's one individual I would like to thank, Mark Thornsberry. He's sitting in the audience there, and a lot of you are familiar with him. And he's been with DAI from the day one, and one of the primary reasons for us to be where we are right now. Building the trust and sustaining it. And I'm appreciative of his support for me to ultimately be here, to be able to continue this, if you will, pass the baton and continue that and help ISA to ultimately where they want to be. So thank you, Mark, for everything you've done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Any questions from the board? No? Jay?
Yeah, I do have one question. Obviously in, today's current environment, I always say there's a war for IT talent, and meeting those demands. Could, I guess both of you just talk a little bit about how you are, developing talent, keeping talent, especially in the Indianapolis market?
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that one. So, one of the things over the past 3 years, so since we moved our headquarters here, we've grown from 100 people to 450 people. And one of the things we've really poured into, culture is hugely important to our organizations. It's one of the reasons we partner so well. We almost don't feel like different companies anymore, to be honest. But one of the things you have to realize is you build this tremendous talent culture around attracting people who want to achieve the mission of what you're trying to do. And so we've been pretty blessed. We hire 1 of every 50 qualified applicants that want to work for us. And so we get to still be pretty choosy, right? 2% of the folks that would like to work for us get to work with us, right? The other thing that's helped there is national expansion. So we do work in all 48 contiguous U.S. states. We have employees in 22 states, although the vast majority of them are here. But that reach allows us, especially through the pandemic, that reach allows us access to talent in kind of a 50x way, approximately, from what it would be with just Indiana. So for us, there's absolutely a talent war on. But if you're at the top of the culture heap on places that people would like to work, and you have the processes and the approach to go find that talent wherever it may be, it hasn't been a problem for us so far. Yeah.
And I agree with what Mark said. And obviously, if you see, DAI is a local company. And obviously, we've always invested in the local economy. And over the years, we've developed the company where talent within, right? Ultimately, when you bring resources that are at a different certain level, then over time they grow, and then. That partnership with the Resultant, for example, when Mark talked about, that helps us opportunity to be able to expand the scope and bring in more resources.
Thanks. Madam Auditor, do you have a question?
If I can, Mr. Chairman, sorry to jump in before Madam Auditor. I just want to add, in our bid process, Jane, that was one of the key pieces we looked at and we called out. To your point, it's not just recruitment, it's that retention and growth. And we also realize that technology, as we all have experienced in all of our organizations, is advancing and becoming more and more complex every day. So not only do we have a war within ISA, when we have those gaps, the other city county agencies are looking at us as ISA to fill that, and then we look at our partners to help us to fill.
Right.
What's especially important is that we made sure that anyone that bid, we wanted to understand what their training programs are, what their platforms are they investing in their teams? Those are big things that they scored well on. But also, and this is, something that I think is maybe unorthodox, part of our negotiation conversation was, do we have pricing that allows for growth for staff, right?
Right.
Because I know in the time I've been here in the 8 years, I inherited a contract on the infrastructure side that had gotten upside down because the rates did not match up with the ability to give people cost of living adjustments, to invest from market demands, to invest in training. Those are things that we've seen, and we've tried to craft both an RFP to pull that out of those vendors, but also a contract that makes sure and emphasizes and focuses on that training program, that training platform, to make sure that's part of this. We actually, in the last amendment we did with the AI, put in a skills repository and inventory of all the staff, so we get that from them as well too. So we are definitely watching that, trying to make sure that as the environment changes, as the demands change from our customers, that our partners are also equipped to meet that demand.
Great.
Madam Auditor?
I'm glad you brought that up, Elliot, because that's exactly what I wanted to say. I've been here almost 16 years, and without DAI, it would have been impossible to get a lot of the updates that we needed to be competitive in local government. I wanted to also talk about the retention as well. You have a lot of valuable employees. I see Marv back there. I've worked with Marv on a couple of things when I first started here. But you have all a high level of historical knowledge and skill in your staff. And I really like to see a lot of them, and I can give you a list of the names if you want later, and their skill levels, because the function of my office is to pay all the bills and all the payroll in the enterprise. Without them, we wouldn't survive. We wouldn't have been able to survive during the pandemic. We rely on them heavily, so I wanted to make sure that I said that in order that you look at the retention for those employees.
Any other questions or comments? Judge?
Again, I just want to echo what's already been said. I think one key factor that I've been involved with various administrations with the courts is again, the retention of employees, but again, the compensation for the employees, because these positions right now, through the pandemic, IT has just been, I mean, it's an employee's market. They can go out and get whatever they want, and it's important that we understand that, so not necessarily just trying to get the best price out of this shouldn't be our goal. Our goal should be much more long-term and getting the best quality out of our people, and to do that, we have to be able to pay them market prices. So.
Okay. Mr. Patrick?
If I can, to that point, Judge Rothenberg, we I think found a good balance of both. So we did get both best price, but then we also had further conversation about making sure that opportunity and that availability is there, because to your point, we can take the pricing to the floor. We're going to get the experience and the results of taking the pricing to the floor, and that was absolutely one of the key things when we put the spit out. I was very clear about, I don't want best price.
Yeah.
I want a combination of a number of various factors that make up the service delivery over 5 years in an initial term, and hopefully the other 3 if things are going well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're the government, we need to be price conscious, but we can't simply go, hey, this one's going to be, $10,000 cheaper. That's we're going to get something that's worth $10,000 cheaper then.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to also take some time to thank a lot of people because having done this a couple of times, this is a lot of work, and it does not happen overnight. Colin talked about that timeline. Obviously, that scoring committee, and Colin already highlighted that we had folks from the courts and the sheriff's office in the middle of opening both those new facilities, in-depth reading thousands of pages of RFPs while they had plenty of things to do. We really appreciate their work and their efforts. Major Thomas as well too, actually now Commander Thomas as well too, for the help that happened there. From purchasing, Wendy Fanish and Eric Swedberg, Kara Spicer, and Osha Brownlee as well for all their help, and of course David Condon. I can't thank David enough for the things that he does every day to help us to get things done at ISA. The applications team, Jordan McCarroll, Kate Toten, Jim Jarvis, Steve Kramer as well, but then Colin and and Jim, but, you know, those guys put in nights and weekends over the last several months while doing their day job to get us to this place, as well as the teams that result in the DI to help us go through this negotiation. Getting the bid done and having, you know, best and final offer, and that's just 20% of the work. Then you got to go sit down and figure out what does this actually mean, and that time has gone well. We've been very encouraged by the relationship and the partnership and the open dialogue we already have, obviously with DAI, but bringing results into the table as well too in a larger capacity. They've done work in their prior name as Cat Miller Consulting with IMPD and some other agencies as well here, so we have experience with them here. So that's all been very beneficial and exciting, but again, just want to thank all the people for all the hard work they put into this, because this does not happen overnight. And you know, we talk about we couldn't get there without them. I know I wouldn't be here standing up alive without them, without these guys getting the work done. So I want to thank everybody for their hard work.
Absolutely. A lot going on, and
Yep.
a lot of work got done. So.
Yep.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board on Resolution 22-22? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Seeing no more items on the agenda today, our next scheduled Information Technology Board meeting will be held Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. Is there any more business to come before the Information Technology Board meeting today? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thanks.